Before we get started, I have a quick favor. I've been self-funding the Finding Genius podcast for 5 years now. I've done over 3,000 episodes. And as you can see on YouTube, we're up over 1 million views on the channel, which is fantastic. The next thing I really want to push on is to get up to 10,000 subscribers. Because once we do, we'll be able to put a donate button and we'll be able to solicit donations to help keep the podcast running and to also get the Finding Genius Foundation moving along. We have a big project studying anxiety, depression, and PTSD and working on a product to help people overcome these problems because I've seen them explode recently after the last 2 years of the whole virus situation. So if you would, please subscribe to the podcast. That would help us tremendously. Give us a thumbs up and check in the description for Buy Me a Coffee. It's about $5. If you could buy me a coffee, I'd really appreciate it. It would help keep the channel going, and I love coffee. Thank you. The Daily Tonic is a 5-minute newsletter that shares science-backed health news and tips, all while getting you to crack a smile or even laugh out loud on occasion. It's a daily morning newsletter started by wellness lovers for wellness lovers that covers everything from diet and exercise to morning routines and sleep aids. To subscribe, go to 247health.com and click on the Daily Tonic button at the top of the webpage. When you go to 247health.com to subscribe to the Daily Tonic newsletter, be sure to check out their product reviews and special recipes. There you can find reviews on the latest health technology that will improve your performance, your recovery, and your longevity. 247health.com believes that wellness is a personal journey, but it's always good to have a friend who knows what they're talking about too. Give them a try at 247health.com. Did you know many of 247health.com's favorite products, like avocado oil mayonnaise, hydrating ketone water, skin revitalizing red light lamps, all are featured on the Daily Tonic with discount codes? If you see a cool new product on the website, there's probably a special link on the Daily Tonic. Plus, the Daily Tonic also features new wellness products with special discounts every single day. To subscribe, go to 247health.com and click on the Daily Tonic button at the top of the webpage.
What can I do with microplastics? And then immediately I started searching. I saw that there is no many papers about research papers about the microplastics, and I saw that I can use the equipment I have available at my department. Yeah, mostly textile fibers, for example, from washing machine. And many companies are working on this topic to make some filters to reduce the discharge of microplastics to wastewater.
Forget frequently asked questions,
common sense, common knowledge, or Google.
How about advice from a real genius? 95% of people in any profession are good enough to be qualified and licensed. 5%
go above and beyond.
They become very good at what they do, but only
0.1%
are real geniuses. Richard Jacobs has made it his life's mission to find them for you. He hunts down and interviews geniuses in every field: sleep science, cancer, stem cells, ketogenic diets, and more. Here come the geniuses. This is the Finding Genius podcast
with Richard Jacobs.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Finding Genius podcast, now part of the Finding Genius Foundation. My guest is from Serbia. Her name is Aleksandra Tubić. She's a Ph.D. and associate professor. She is a chair of chemical technology and environmental protection at her university. We're going to talk about microplastics and her research and everything she's working on. So, Aleksandra, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Richard, for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. What's the name of your university?
University of Novi Sad. It's the second largest city in Serbia after Belgrade.
Oh, okay, very good. Well, tell me a bit about your background and how you got involved with microplastics.
Yeah, that's a funny story. So I'm chemist by my background, and 20 years ago, I started to work after my graduation, I started to work in environmental protection field. And for 10 last years, I was trying to get some interesting topic for my research after my PhD, of course, and everything. And 5 years ago, I was at some training, and people from that training said one sentence: so with this instrument, you can analyze microplastics. And I was very interested I got to catch this word, and I was very interested what it is, what can I do with microplastics. And then immediately I started searching. I saw that there is no many papers about research papers about the microplastics, and I saw that I can use the equipment I have available at my department. And that is how I started to work on microplastics. And of course, I started working what I knew. So from the chemical point of view, investigating microplastics in interactions with other pollutants in water environment, because water is what I did for my PhD and in my research afterwards. And I hope to bring some new conclusions regarding this topic and some useful conclusions from my research for the worldwide population.
Okay. And do you know the history of microplastics? Like, how many years have people been researching them? And
first research about microplastics are starting some 20 years ago, but very, very small number of paper was published until, let's say, 2015 or 2016, mostly about the marine environment and the effects of microplastics on the marine and organisms. And marine biologists were first to see the effects, negative effects of microplastics actually. And from the 2016 until now, I think every time I open the research, some research pages, I can see that there is a 50 new papers each day. So the very, very large number of papers and studies were involved now about microplastics, and also very large number of scientists work on this topic from all the fields, from the marine biologists, engineers, health, medicine, people who are involved in medicine. All kind of scientists are involved in these researches.
okay, so what questions about microplastics are you trying to answer specifically?
Yes, being a chemist, I'm looking from this side. So I think we need to know the basic information about behavior of microplastics in the environment and how it interacts with other pollutants. So, for example, in wastewater or in surface waters, inland or sea or oceans, there are lots of different compounds. Some are naturally there, and the other one are anthropogenic. And there is also very large number of organic compounds, which are very diverse, and they all interact with microplastics, also with other constituents of the water. So I tried last couple of years is to investigate, is there interaction between pollutants and microplastic, and how they behave in wastewater treatments. So, I think this is the field which is very important, since wastewater is going to our aquatic surface waters and can make them, of course, polluted. Although we have very efficient treatments for many different kinds of pollution, microplastics is not one of them. So since it's newly discovered pollutant, let's say, because as I said, 10 years ago, we didn't think about microplastics at all. Now everyone is talking about microplastics, also nanoplastics, which is much more difficult for quantitation and quality analysis. And now we need to estimate what is the amount of microplastics in wastewater, how it behaves in different stages of wastewater treatment, and of course it won't disappear. So we will remove it maybe from the water and discharge the water to a aquatic environment. However, the microplastics will stay in, for example, sludge. So
have you been to wastewater treatment plants and sampled?
Yes.
Some of
Yeah,
the effluent.
yes, we were. It's monitoring actually or determining the microplastics in the wastewater treatment plants is not very easy. So there is several research group working on that around the world, and the results are very, very important that they get, but it's still very. It's not it's not fully discovered everything about microplastics. So there is still lots of questions about which kind of microplastics are present in wastewater treatment plants, which treatment is the most efficient, how they behave in the primary treatment, secondary treatment, and other stages of water treatment, and what we should do with the remaining microplastics when we treat the water. So if they stay in sludge, for example, in some countries, these kind of sludges are going to as fertilizers on the land. So basically, we can pollute the land, although not in a purpose. So it's a very difficult, very important question to see what we can do to safely dispose this kind of waste, actually.
What tends to be in wastewater at various points? Like, are there a lot of fibers, or what ends up in the sludge? What do you see?
Every kind of microplastics can be there. So it's from the kind. It can be polyethylene, polypropylene, polyethylene terephthalate. So the polyester from our clothes, from the everyday, the personal care products also can be a source of the polyethylene, for example. So from everyday life, we use a lot of plastic, and unintentionally we are discharging it into the wastewater. So there is lots of different. So there can be fibers also, some pellets, and different shapes of microplastics also, or different sizes. Of course, it's what we define as the microplastics is less than 5 millimeters. So it's a very wide range of particles. And although many of the studies research this topic, they for sure don't evaluate all the sizes. So it's not very easy, because there is lots of different sizes of particles, and also lots of different polymers. So every polymer we use. Yeah.
Alexandra, quick question. What is the typical time frame from when wastewater is generated? You know, someone uses their bathroom, or someone washes their laundry, and the wastewater gets to the water treatment plant. Like, how old, quote unquote, is that source?
I would say in a frame of 24 hours. So it's different for different. It's not the same for the small cities, for the big cities. It's different, but in the frame of 24 hours.
So which plastics in the wastewater make sense and which ones don't? Because it's very short-lived. Where do they come from? What does that tell you that it's only 24 hours? Where do these things come from?
Yeah, mostly textile fibers, for example, from washing machine. And many companies are working on this topic to make some filters to reduce the discharge of microplastics to wastewater. Also, personal care products. So we use it all, and everything which has these scrubs, for example, it was polyethylene mostly. I appreciate that many companies now actually removed polyethylene from their products, and they are searching some other ways to make this scrub effect in personal care products. Also, you have tire wear particles everywhere because of they're on the roads, and when the rain is, then they go the particles goes to the wastewater. That is, I would say, the most significant sources in the wastewater treatment plant. Of course, there is some industrial discharge from the production of plastic materials, plastic products, if they are attached to the municipal wastewater and so.
But some of the microplastics, again, it makes sense that they would be in wastewater. But are you surprised about how some of them get in there? I mean, from tires, from places that wouldn't make sense normally that they would be in wastewater, or does it all make sense that all these plastics should be in there?
These are all usual activities from human activities, and perfectly makes sense that they are there. So we need to remove them in the place of wastewater treatment. Every other pollutant, for example, pharmaceuticals or some hormones which are in everyday use, or some detergents and some other products for cleaning. So yeah, I would say it's from usual everyday use of plastic things.
So have you been to a waste treatment plant and at each stage sampled the effluent and looked at which microplastics are there and which ones are not, like before flocculation, after flocculation, before settling tanks, after, has anyone done that with step by step and looked at the differences?
Yes, there is data and literature, and I can say that fortunately primary treatment and especially secondary treatment is found to be very very good in removing microplastics, although it's not the primary design for this. And however, we have to the reports are that secondary treatment is, for example, efficient over 90% to remove microplastics from wastewater, and which is very, very good. However, the studies are still limited regarding the shape and the size of microplastic which is removed, because as I said, each study covers some range of sizes of microplastics and also some shapes, because it's not it would be too wide for one study to represent all the types of polymers and all the sizes. So yes, the secondary treatment is very efficient for some different kind of polymers, and also usually they follow polyethylene and polyethylene terephthalate and polyester. And also it is recommended by these researchers that some additional treatments should be included to remove the remaining plastic, because when I said over 90% removal, it's very good removal rate. However, the amount of plastic is very significant, very, very large, and this 10% which will go to the aquatic environment is still large amount, because it goes every day. So we should do everything which is from our side to reduce that.
Before we get started, I have a quick favor. I've been self-funding the Finding Genius podcast for 5 years now. I've done over 3,000 episodes. And as you can see on YouTube, we're up over 1 million views on the channel, which is fantastic. The next thing I really want to push on is to get up to 10,000 subscribers, because once we do, we'll be able to put a donate button, and we'll be able to solicit donations to help keep the podcast running, and to also get the Finding Genius Foundation moving along. We have a big project studying anxiety, depression, and PTSD, and working on a product to help people overcome these problems, because I've seen them explode recently after the last 2 years of the whole virus situation. So if you would, please subscribe to the podcast. That would help us tremendously. Give us a thumbs up. And check in the description for Buy Me a Coffee. It's about $5. If you could buy me a coffee, I'd really appreciate it. It would help keep the channel going, and I love coffee. Thank you.
How are concentrations of microplastics expressed? Is it in parts per million, or what is the metric?
It's usually particle per liter or particle per cubic meter, and it's also not maybe the best for the estimation of the amount, because usually when we do something in environmental engineering or technology, we are expressing the micrograms, milligrams per liter, and this is this is what is better indicator for the amount of compounds. So, but still there is not a standard method for sampling, for analyzing microplastics. Very strong research groups around the world, also very strong institutions are together with ISO are working on standardization of the protocols in order to be applied in routine monitoring. So for the routine monitoring in routine laboratories, usually we need to be able to analyze and sample a large number of samples and for the short time, and to cover all the, for example, for microplastics, we should be able to cover most of the polymers and also different shapes. So I hope in recent coming years actually that this will be solved, because I know that many efforts are put in this question of finding a right sample. Now you can find in the literature that someone take spot samples from behind each phase of the treatment. Also, someone's use the 24-hour continuous sampling, or maybe longer than some. In some studies, they sampled like 5 liters of water. In the other studies, they say they sampled 100 liters of water. So it's different. All these findings from this research are very valuable, because we don't know much about microplastics. Still, we need the standardized methods for this. For example,
what are the like if I take a sample of wastewater, do I have to centrifuge it? And if I centrifuge it, won't that snarl up all the particles? Like,
no,
do I have to dry it out or evaporate it? What do you do?
Usually, for now, until now, usually we did separation by the density, because most of the polymers are lighter than other particles, so we can extract them to the surface of our samples. So usually we digest samples with let's say hydrogen peroxide or phenton or some other reagent to remove organic matters and some other constituents of the water, so that this density separation is easier. And then we go with this density separation. It's the most cheapest way is to add sodium chloride and make a strong solution to get the higher density, and then you will have your particles in the surface of the sample, and then you can take filter it and get it on the filter paper, and then go to analysis. That was the usual thing until now. So this is the very efficient way to extract most of the polymers. However, it should be valid. These methods are usually not validated, and they are not according to standard procedures, as they go very thorough validation.
Before we continue, I've been personally funding the Finding Genius podcast for 4.5 years now, which has led to 2,700 plus interviews of clinicians, researchers, scientists, CEOs, and other amazing people who are working to advance science and improve our lives and our world. Even though this podcast gets 100,000 plus downloads a month, we need your help to reach hundreds of thousands more worldwide. Please visit findinggeniuspodcast.com and click on Support Us. We have 3 levels of membership from $10 to $49 a month, including perks such as the ability to see ahead in our interview calendar and ask questions of upcoming guests, transcripts of podcasts you're interested in, the ability to request specific topics or guests, and more. Visit findinggeniuspodcast.com and click support us today. Now back to the show.
And I know that some research groups are now working on that, because we have a big project with more than 300 researchers all over the world. It is actually cost action, and we are communicated every day with these people, and we got very nice information that they are working hardly they're working hard to find the right protocol for sampling and then analysis of microplastics.
Okay. Do microplastics tend to interact with each other in wastewater, or do they interact with the solids? When you go through flocculation, do they adhere to the flock a lot? What happens?
Well, they will actually, some of the polymers will go down in the sludge. Some of the polymers will interact with bacteria, for example. There is evidence that bacteria very nicely live on the surface of microplastic, and they make their own. They're very nice habitat for the bacteria, for example. They can interact with organic and inorganic constituents of the water and contaminants. Because we found in our investigation, in our studies, that microplastics is absorbing large amount of many different kinds of pollutants, hydrophobic and also hydrophilic. So definitely the microplastics will, in interaction with other constituents of the water, it will affect the treatment. For example, disinfection, let's say, because in disinfection stage, microplastics we will need to use higher amounts of disinfectants. For example, in the place where they use chlorine, and also microplastics can cover bacteria and can protect them from the disinfectant. So it affects the treatment efficiency. It affects the removal of other pollutants in the treatment, and also affects the quality of the sludge, for example, in the treatment. And also in aquatic environment, it will be the same. For example, in surface water, it will affect the organisms. It will affect the sediments and the processes in aquatic environment also.
Well, do you notice that microplastics have their own microbiome, and are they are some hydrophilic? Do they actually do they solubilize in the water when they interact with the water substantially?
Yes, because they're low density. Some polymers are low density. For example, polyethylene. With low density, it can stay in the water and interact with other particles, and so. But until now, I can say that, for example, flocculation is very efficient for removal of various polymers. There is studies about polyester, polyethylene terephthalate. We did with polyethylene. It's harder. It's much harder to remove it, but. It's still a work in progress, so we will try to improve the flocculation. Also, there is evidence that absorption is good process for the removal of microplastics in, for example, water treatment plants, and some membrane processes. So there is, let's say, a solution. However, it has all these treatments need to be improved or adjusted to this kind of pollutants, because they are mostly made for other, of course, well-known contaminants.
So what do you think is going to be known about microplastics in the next few years? Are you close to any answers in your research?
It will be by the according to the data I see every day, because I follow each day the new literature. I can say that many things will be known. I hope that we will find a way to prevent microplastics to be in our environment, air and water and sediments, soils. Many things are done already. For example, there are some regulations to ban the microplastics for the single use. So then many companies are already going in direction to ban to exchange these plastic particles they use with some other natural particles or some polymers which are easily biodegradable. Additionally, there is some companies which use, for example, microplastics from the sea to produce something which is useful and actually to recycle microplastics. Also, there is lots of companies which take old textile fibers and make clothes from that. So that kind of recycling. So the prevention is the first step. The education of wider population is the second step, where we all need to be aware of the fact that we use plastic. That plastic can be a very big pollution, can give very big pollution to the environment if we discharge it in the way that it's not a proper way to discharge. And the third step is to find proper technologies to treat already existing microplastics in the environment. So all this, of course, the important thing is to evaluate how much to which extent the microplastics and the nanoplastics, of course, is having a bad effect for our health and also for the environment and living species in our environment. And I think in this sense, in all these directions, researchers are going very fast, and each day we can see new findings which are very important. And I hope we will have more and more relevant information about microplastics. So in, let's say, 5 to 10 years, I think it will become less talking about this kind of pollution in the environment.
Well, very good, Aleksandra. What's the best place for people to find out more about your work? Where can they go?
They can certainly follow my project, this big one which we have, and many of the people which already speak with you are involved in the project. It's a cost action priority website. They can find more information and contacts of many distinguished researchers in this field, and can also they can contact me and them and ask if they anything they are interested in the field of microplastics and how we are going further with our research.
Okay, very good, Aleksandra. Thank you for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Richard, for calling me.
The Daily Tonic is a 5-minute newsletter that shares science-backed health news and tips, all while getting you to crack a smile or even laugh out loud on occasion. It's a daily morning newsletter started by wellness lovers for wellness lovers that covers everything from diet and exercise to morning routines and sleep aids. To subscribe, go to 247health.com and click on the Daily Tonic button at the top of the webpage. When you go to 247health.com to subscribe to the Daily Tonic newsletter, be sure to check out their product reviews and special recipes. There you can find reviews on the latest health technology that will improve your performance, your recovery, and your longevity. 247health.com believes that wellness is a personal journey, but it's always good to have a friend who knows what they're talking about too. Give them a try at 247health.com. Did you know many of 247health.com's favorite products, like avocado oil mayonnaise, hydrating ketone water, skin revitalizing red light lamps, all are featured on the Daily Tonic with discount codes? If you see a cool new product on the website, there's probably a special link on the Daily Tonic. Plus, the Daily Tonic also features new wellness products with special discounts every single day. To subscribe, go to 247health.com and click on the Daily Tonic button at the top of the webpage.
If you like this podcast, please click the link in the description to subscribe and review us on iTunes.
You've been listening to the Finding Genius podcast with Richard Jacobs. If you like what you hear, be sure to review and subscribe to the Finding Genius podcast on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. And want to be smarter than everybody else? Become a premium member at findinggeniuspodcast.com. This podcast is for information only. No advice of any kind is being given. Any action you take or don't take as a result of listening is your sole responsibility. Consult professionals when advice is needed.